Tickets on sale now.
Lens Rentals versus Lenny's Rentals. Difference number 7.
At Lens Rentals, our goal is simple: share the best available equipment and educate and provide support to our customers to ensure they can achieve their goals, regardless of experience level.
Sharp, dedicated, focused. Just one more reason to use Lens Rentals. LensRentals.com. Shoot with the best.
Hello, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 2 of the Midwest Gaming Classic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Garris, Panel Director of the Midwest Gaming Classic. Recently, the gaming world was stunned to hear that a new Portal game was about to be unveiled, and that game is a pinball machine. That's right, Multimorphic, the company behind awesome games like The Princess Bride and Weird Al, unveiled their next pinball machine, and it's Portal. Join designer Josh Kugler to explore how this game came together. And you know what? Enough of me talking. Why don't we get to the podcast?
All right, hello and welcome to our first panel presentation, panel of one today. But how many of you were here last night and had a chance to play any of the Multimorphic games? All right, if you haven't, you have to check them out. They're absolutely awesome. Here for the first time at the show last year, I think, so with the Princess Bride, and that was an amazing game. You have to try that. So, to talk about that whole platform, we have Josh Kugler. Please give him a big welcome.
Thank you. I want you all to know that I just lost money because I had the over at 17 people here, and we're over that, so I just lost a wager. So I'm not happy. No, just kidding. We're going to start with a video clip of the teaser. Let's see if it plays.
Hello again. It's been a long time. I had almost given up hope of ever testing again, but I think we can put our differences behind us. For science. Federal regulations require me to warn you that this next test chamber is looking pretty good. This next test applies the principles of momentum to movement through portals.
Hi, I'm Reginald, Team Building Core. You can call me Reggie. Oh, nice shot! Well done!
You must be very, very proud. I'm building the world's smallest trophy for you.
She didn't mean that. Okay, the momentum jump is ready. Woohoo! Oh, it's party time!
Initiating surprise in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, that's a good one. Woohoo! Oh, that looks nice. Get ready, here it comes. It's showtime!
Press the button again.
I'm making a note here. Huge success! This is the hard light bridge. Oh, that was good. Bravo, well done, bravo.
This next test involves the Aperture Science Aerial Faith Plate.
Wow, you're kind of good at this. Jackpot! Double jackpot! Triple jackpot!
This next test involves turrets. They're the pale spherical things that are full of bullets. Oh wait, that's you in 5 seconds.
Oh no, it's turret multi-ball! Come on, come on, come on, come on! Hit those turrets! Super jackpot! Hey, it's Edgeless Safety Cube multi-ball!
Please continue into the next test chamber.
Looks like you climbed to the top of this very tall chamber. Have I mentioned I'm not a fan of heights? Oh, don't worry, you'll do great. Got it! Cool lasers! No, 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 please, no! I can't look. No, 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 no! Ah!
Excellent. The Enrichment Center reminds you that bold, persistent experimentation is the hallmark of good science.
So I'm going to just start off with a quick question. I'm going to ask everybody here, which of these things best describes you? I know almost nothing about it, and that's why I'm here. Okay, show of hands, great. I've been following for a bit now, but now thinking I want one. Okay. I'm a current P3 owner, and I was tired and I just wanted a place to sit down. Okay. You know, normally I try to get a later in the day seminar because to me, that's when you get more people to come to your seminars when people are looking for a place to sit down. But I was thankful to get a slot. I'm happy to be here to talk about the platform. So we really have a combination of all of those people here today. So I'll try and hit on all of those things, and at some point we'll see how long they let me go before the next seminar comes in. We always like to refer to it as Pinball Evolved. People are always looking for innovation, and I don't think there's any doubt Multimorphic is the most innovative company in pinball these days, and we continue to push that limit. And even on our own platform, with each game, it's a challenge to how do we do something bigger, how do we surprise people. And for those who've had an opportunity to play Portal and have been following us along, you saw really for the first time that we've brought, really since Heist, where we've brought the action closer to the player. We always said we could put stuff on that part of the playfield if we wanted to. Finally we said, let's do it, because it made sense to do it for this game. And we're always looking for that next challenge, just a little bit of the theme. Heist came out in 2020, and I personally felt that was a critical moment for the company. I wasn't with Multimorphic at the time, but that was the first game that I think really connected with a lot of pinball players. It had a little bit of an old school feel, but it was a really immersive, original theme. It's about a heist, and it's about building your team of people to help you in this heist. It has a decent amount of breadth and depth, but it's not overwhelmingly so. And that really started to gain the popularity for Heist. It also introduced the crane on that module, which is able to extend out over the lower part of the play field. It's something you could hit, it could grab a ball. There's some modes that does some pretty cool stuff. It's a really cool toy, and the first of, I think, many cool toys that hopefully we'll do. So, after doing an original theme, it's like, well, what do we do next? Well, everybody knows that what's incredibly popular in pinball these days is music themes. So that was a natural fit, but Multimorphic does walk to the beat of a different drum. So rather than, of course, a traditional rock and roll band, not surprising that Multimorphic would go with Weird Al's Museum of Natural Hilarity. And Weird Al was great to work with on the project. And his material really lends itself to storytelling, to do those things. As all of his songs are stories, it's not just rock. So it worked really, really well to bring things to life and to be able to leverage the platform. And that's a key thing as we're looking at themes, is how do you really make it immersive? How do you bring that theme to life? So a lot of people really like Baird. It's got some really cool mechs on it. We do not have one installed, but we do have the playfield on the table, so you can at least come check it out and see all the cool things that are on that playfield. So then the next question is, well, what do we do next? We've done an original kind of a theme, we've done a music theme. Well, Scott Denisi came along and he said, I want to show people that you can do a very traditional looking pinball machine on the P3 platform. Right here, some little Weird Al stuff, which is more in my presentation. He came along and said, let's do something that's a more traditional looking game. And he went with a static playfield. So it's still obviously the LCD screen, but the inserts are static. They light up like regular inserts. The light shows look like regular inserts. And he introduced a very fast playing, kind of a traditional style game as far as the rules and stuff. And it's a pretty cool game. And there's like a 14 ball or 15 ball multi-ball in there. That's just wild when it happens. And again, a very cool mech that stacks balls vertically and then fires them at you in rapid succession. Okay, great. So, all right, we've done the music pin, we've done the traditional pin, we've done an original theme. Okay, what's next? Well, naturally, a movie theme. And to be honest, that was almost surprising that it took this long to get to a movie theme because we really feel the platform does an incredible job with that. Actually, the reason I joined Multimorphic was because of Princess Bride. When I had left, I was at American Pinball, left there. I had a bunch of phone calls from people, and Princess Bride was, yep, that's the winner. I was just talking with somebody. When I purchase a machine, theme is not number one on my list. It's not number two. It's not number three. Gameplay and those things are more important to me when I'm purchasing a pin. However, if I'm developing a pin, theme is number one. Because if you're going to spend 18 months of your life on something, you have to enjoy it. If you're not passionate about it, the quality of the product is not going to be very good. Your heart's not going to be in it. And so, for me at that point, I'm only going to work on something that I can be passionate about and really enjoy. And Princess Bride certainly was that. I always reference, people always talk, they'd like to see a Three Stooges game. I'm like, you will never see a Three Stooges game from me because there's no way I'm spending 18 months with Larry, Moe, and Curly. I'd rather slit my wrists. But there are people out there who would love to do that, right? And you have to get the right developer for that. And we've all seen games where you can tell the team maybe didn't really have their heart in that game. And that game's not going to come out very good. And if you look at any of the games I've done, you'll see that passion was there because it is so critical to it. And the Princess Bride, obviously a great story, and what worked really well, and I've got about 80 slides on Princess Bride that we won't get to today because we won't have time, with the backstory and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that maybe I'll whip through a couple real quick if we can. But really lends itself, and the fact that we had the entire movie to work with really allowed us, and we spent a lot of time trying to create rules and gameplay that fit the movie, where each and every mode really captures the sense of that scene, that part of the movie. And I recently sort of did an audit of that and went back and looked and really felt that we really got that right on every mode, that we really capture it. There were very few things in hindsight. I'm like, boy, we didn't really miss that. And that was, I think, really gratifying when we went back and looked at that. So, video game was clearly the next choice after doing all of those other things. And there were a couple of guys on the team, Michael Ocean and Steven Silver, who for 5 or 6 years have been screaming, we want to do Portal, we want to do Portal. And when your development team is screaming, this is the game they want to do, well, go get the license. And Jerry went out and he got the license, and the folks at Valve were great. They love pinball, they were thrilled to do it. And I'm not sure there's a better platform for doing a game like Portal than the P3. Normally P3 has 15 balls, Final Resistance has 18, Portal requires 18 balls because the fact that we've got balls all over the place, so that when you enter a portal, we can instantaneously bring the ball out at the other side. Quick show of hands, who knows Portal the video game? Oh, so pretty much everybody here. So you're way ahead of me because I didn't know Portal the video game until I first heard the game was being worked on. And at Multimorphic, things are kept pretty secret. So usually one team doesn't know what the other team is working on until a certain point, which helps avoid leaks and all the rest. And when I first heard Portal, I didn't know what it was. And now I do. And I still haven't quite found like the last stage of Portal. I haven't gotten to Portal 2 yet. And it's actually my kind of video game because it's puzzle solving, which I love. And these guys knocked it out of the park. So Michael, Steven, and Ian Harrower were the co-creative directors. You had three guys who were so passionate about it. Normally you don't want three guys leading, but they did, and they did just an amazing job of bringing this to life and capturing it. So I'm going to go into more in Portal, but I want to just step back a little bit. So I talked about all these titles that are on the P3, these various games. There are actually 23 games available on the P3 now. I think we're at 8 modules, 23 games. So one of the really cool things about the platform is almost every game has multiple games you can play on that module. And there are games you can play that don't even require a module in the sense that they play on the lower half of the field. Some of these are games that are developed by Multimorphic, and in some cases these are games created by third-party developers, which is really one of the things that makes the platform unique, is people who are aspiring to develop pinball games, you don't have to do it all. You can start with a platform that already exists and do a software-only game, or in one case there's a third-party module called Drained. Somebody who first did a couple of software-only games, and then he did his own module, and he started his own company to start manufacturing that. So really a tremendous amount of these games that are available to play. And again, usually with almost any module, there's multiple games. Bird Watcher, which is a game Ian did before he joined the company. I know that runs on every module. Rocks works with every module. Dungeon Door Defender, which is one of my personal favorites, runs on Heist and also on Princess Bride. And that's one who Michael had done that as a third-party separate project. And when I was working on Princess Bride, as soon as he knew what it was, I said, Michael, this will be perfect for Dungeon Door Defender. You need to make Dungeon Door Defender work on this. And he actually had that out right away. It's just a really fun game and one of the great things about the platform. So, as I said, third-party development, there's a dev kit for anyone who's interested. You download it. There's a Discord for both owners and for people who are developing games. When I first got on the Discord, I was shocked how many guys out there are working on games. See how many finally get it through. But most recently was Young Martial Artists, which actually I haven't had a chance to install and play yet. So I've been too busy working on some other code. And that's the latest third-party game. And that one was actually released free. So whoever developed it said, I'm just going to let everybody enjoy it. And I hear it's a pretty fun game, so looking forward to getting a chance to download that. All right. So this is 10 third-party titles and counting. That's a lie because I just told you about Young Martial Artists, which isn't on the list. So pricing for existing P3 owners, when a new module comes out, the pricing typically ranges between $1,800 and $3,750, and that's driven by what's in the game, how much complexity, how many mechanisms. All of that is obviously heavily what drives the price point. And software games, like I said, can be anywhere from free to $500, and again, that's based on the depth and breadth of the game. If you're a new buyer, the base platform is $8,500 if you got it without a module. Not that anybody would ever buy it without a module. Well, just so recently somebody bought a bunch of modules from somebody and they just needed a base unit. You get a 20% discount on the game kit that's installed. You'll see most of the pricing we show is including that when we show it with a base kit. There's currently a referral program running. We get a $1,000 discount for new customers referred to by an existing customer. However, if you talk to Justin, the distributor who's here, you would also still get the $1,000 discount. But if you have a buddy who's got a P3 and you want a P3, you should get him to do the referrals and he gets a score credit. And for $1,000, you get a couple of referral friends, you get basically covers your next module. So it's actually pretty exciting. And part of the reason for the referral program is to try to get more P3s to shows like this show. Multimorphic can only get to so many shows. We were here last year because basically I berated Jerry. We needed to be at this show. We certainly wanted to be at the show this year with Portal because of the mix, but it's one of my favorite shows to be at. And this year we got Justin to come, and so if he sells a few games, he'll come back next year. So let's make sure we get Justin some business. So again, Princess Bride, you can see the pricing here was the most expensive until now, and I'll go into the pricing on Portal. I believe it's later in this presentation. So let's talk about Portal. It's obviously an iconic video game franchise. Everybody here had heard of it, right? You all told me that. It's got an amazing story. The unique physics and the portals really lent itself well to the platform, and that's why Michael and Steven were like, we have to do this game. It's the perfect fit. And I've had a lot of people today tell me, I can't believe that Portal finally got done and that it wasn't done before. And the reality is, I'm not sure it's a big enough, popular enough title for, say, Stern to take on. But that's the nice thing about a company that's a little bit smaller. I guess we can take that risk. We can do some niche kind of things or unique things, as long as it sells well enough. But that's a great opportunity we have. So Mercy the player in the story, again, the ability to move the ball around. So I'm just going to go through some slides around the art package on the game. So on the P3 platform, all of this cabinet art is magnetic. So when you swap a module in or out, you just peel off the side cabinet art, and you put the new cabinet on. Some people here who are P3 owners probably, who here just uses System Core? Anybody? A couple people. So System Core is sort of a generic P3 art package that some people put on, and they don't change it, especially if the game's in the middle of a lineup. You don't always necessarily need the artwork. When you buy your first game, it includes one set of the art package. So typically get whatever game they're buying, they'll get that art package, or they'll choose System Core. So when I got my game, because I knew it was going to be in the lineup, I got System Core, but for all of my games, I get the top side artwork. I get the apron, which again is magnetic. I get the slingshots, which are magnetic, the side targets, which are magnetic. The front panel art is new. We introduced that with Princess Bride. It's now available for all games. That takes a couple of screws. And then the speaker panel has art you can change to the piece that slides in and out. So again, I'm sure if you talk to the owners here, they'll do varying degrees of what they swap out and they trade games in and out. In the case of Princess Bride, we have a collector's edition that actually has swords. It has Inigo's sword mounted to the sides of the cabinet. And so the collector edition to some ways was designed for people who might never want to swap it into another game, but they still could. But the swords don't come off because that would be a liability. So we talked about storytelling. And when you're playing Portal, the game is sort of divided into two phases. There's when you're in a test chamber, which is what's represented here on the right, and when you're not in a test chamber. When you're not in a test chamber, the game plays a lot like a 90s style pinball machine. You have a set of 8 objectives that you can see there on the lower portion of the grid. And I'm not sure how well you can see that screen, please, decent big. There's little dots there that are showing you your progress towards collecting the ramps you need, the portals you need, the various targets you need. And with those objectives, you're trying to complete them, which then triggers a hurry up at the faith plate, which is that center shot. But if you complete another objective right after it, before collecting the hurry up value increases geometrically in some way. I don't know the exact math on that, and then which extends that timer. So as a player, you're trying to stack as many of these completions as you can before collecting and cashing them in. And what I've been told by the people who've played them a lot is if you can get you get 3 or 4 of those, you get an awful lot of time at that point. It gives you a lot of time to get the other 4, but clearly some strategy and preparing it and setting that up. There's also 3 multi-balls that exist in what we refer to as hub mode. So you've got these objectives, you've got these 3 multi-balls, which are all stackable. So you can stack all 3 multi-balls. I've seen a bunch of people in line already stack 2 of them. I'm not sure I've seen anybody stack all 3 yet. It's turret, faith plate, and cube. So there's 3 different multi-balls, and that tracking is on here as well. That second row on the left is the test chambers. I believe there are 6 planned, 6 or 7, I'm not sure. 4 of them are currently available on the game, the others are still under construction. And you're able to use the yellow buttons to pre-select the test chamber you want before you enter the test chamber, which will be the scoop on the left when it raises up. So once you start to know the game and you want to strategize or which ones you want to start with, my understanding right now number 3 is the hardest. And those very much follow the game as far as those are puzzles you're trying to solve. And in one case, it's the ramps, and you have to hit the ramp, but if you hit the ramp the second time, you're basically undone, and now you have to start over again to reposition things. So it really is very much patterned after the gameplay when you're in the test chamber. So this is just showing a little bit more of the graphics. You can see the graphics, again, really capture the feel of the game. I had somebody commented that they thought things were a little subdued. I said, because that's the style of the game, right? If we did it in bright pastels, you guys would all be like, what are you guys doing? That's not Portal. And being really true to things is always really important to us. So Portal's our first game that sort of comes in 2 versions. There's Portal Standard, which is the main module itself. There is no difference in the rules of the games, whether you have Standard or what's called the Extended. And the Extended is this now adds these this is still the standard. This is still standard. This is the right is the back panel. That's the lock. It receives the balls. You know the game. You know the cubes, the companion cubes. In this case, one's on the left, one's on the right. You make it disappear on the left. It appears on the right. The balls go back and forth between the two. I think there are, I can't remember if it's 12 or 14 portals in the game. So different places the ball can come in and out of. I haven't quite figured them all out yet. I'm trying to figure out how the captive ball one works. I haven't gotten a good look at that one yet, which is one of them. So you can see the various portals here. In the game, the portals light to the same color. Okay, so where obviously in the video game you have an orange and a blue, although you can go in and out of either one. In this case, and this was something the Valve folks were actually, I think it was their suggestion, to make it a little easier that, you know, if you see blue, you know it's going to come out the blue, and the orange is going to come out the orange. So it's a slight difference, but again, kind of made sense for pinball. On the left side here is the faceplate that when you hit it, it flips the ball backwards. It does require the right amount of speed, so if it's a little too fast or too slow, it won't necessarily lock, but typically you'll still get credit. Even if it doesn't do it successfully, it seems to work a pretty high percentage of the time. It just sort of flips it back there, flips it back there. It also opens up to be a scoop. And that's one of the cool things in this game. Almost everything is 2 things. So the 2 ramps you see there are both lift ramps, and they open up. And at some point, those are portals between them, by the way. So it goes under one ramp. Sometimes it's coming out of the other ramp, but sometimes it portals to the back left playfield, and sometimes the right one portals down the left side where there's, we'll get to it, a wall mech that flips the wall and shoots the ball across the upper plastic. I'm not going to read this slide. Here's all the stuff that comes on Portal Standard. Portal Extended. So for the first time, other than the crane, we've brought mechanisms down onto the display. And we have a ramp, we have a spinner, and a bunch of other mechs that we've brought down. And this piece just drops in. So you remove the 2 wire forms that are normally in that spot. So it's 2 screws each. This drops down, and then it's 2 screws on each side to attach this, and a connector. And might be a connector on both sides. I don't know, I haven't installed it myself yet. To obviously control the switches and the ramp and all the movement. So it's still a very, very quick install to be able to drop in this component. But again, you can play the game with or without it. So even if you have this and you've got Princess Bride in and somebody says, let's play Portal, you could just swap out the Portal and not necessarily even change the middle area if you didn't want to and still be able to enjoy Portal. The shots you lose are just handled in different ways. Maybe not quite as cool with some of those shots, but you still get to play the game with the same rules. So here kind of gives you a shot of the ramp, which is also a lift ramp. So not only is it a ramp on the lower part of the playfield, it raises up and those targets raise up with it. On the other, to the right of that is a kickback. There's a lock over there, and then towards the front there you can see is a gate that's used for receiving a shot that you shoot across this upper plastic, across the light bridge. And you can see that next to the over here, you can see it's like a flipper almost, the wall that flips out to make the shot. And this is just a wall. You can see on the other side is the spinner. Here talks about what's included with Portal Extended. Am I doing on time here? Oh, we're cranking. We're doing good. Okay, so Portal pricing. The standard is $11,620. So again, that's the base cabinet, the Portal, and the art package. If you're buying a new machine, the extended is discounted a little bit, so the extended is $12,500. So it's only an additional $900 instead of normally it's I think $1,600. And I know that upset a few people that we did that for existing owners, but we really just wanted to try to lower the barrier of entry a little bit for people jumping into the platform. So we just kind of felt that, given the fact that we knew this module was going to be a little bit higher priced than the previous modules, discounted as much as we could to try to minimize that pain of that first purchase. But as the P3 owners know, as you have that second, third, and fourth module, that cost per game really starts to come down nicely. And the other nice thing to just mention there is when you get a module, it comes in a box that's about 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet in size. It gets delivered by UPS. A couple of the games I think do ship on a pallet, just to prevent UPS from damaging them, the ones that are a little bit heavier. But much nicer when you get that, you carry it downstairs, you open the box, you drop it in the game. So people get their shipment and 10 minutes later they're flipping their new game versus having to buy beer and pizza and 4 friends to come over and help you move it. Now you will need beer and pizza and 4 friends to move the game the first time. So just be prepared for that. There are ways to lighten the game for that first move. And if you get, when you go online, the Discord people will coach you through the pieces you can remove if you need to lighten it up to get it down in your house. Or you do what I did, which is you find a friend who has an Esclera, and you give them a really, really good deal on a Home Use Valley Playboy in exchange for coming and moving your P3 game. It may not work for all of you, but it did work for me. Plus I needed the space, so made 2 of us got very happy. And I had to do the guy a solid, because he once sold me a whitewater with a topper for $1,500. So given Scott happened with that kind of pricing, and it was right before sort of pricing took off, I felt I needed to give him a pretty good deal on the Playboy. So the team who worked on Portal, as I mentioned, there were 3 creative directors. Ian Harrower, this was his first game officially with Multimorphic, but he had done Bird Watcher. And by the way, if anybody's interested in doing development, Ian did a tremendous guide for starting off a primer, on how to build something for the P3 platform. That, to be honest, I wish I had seen before I started working on Princess Bride, because it probably would have saved me a lot of aggravation and having to figure some stuff out. So if you're interested, definitely check that out. The artwork was done by Brad Albright. Funny story about Brad. I met Brad at Expo for the first time this year, and he said, I'm working on the next Multimorphic game. And I basically said, well, I don't believe you, because, I was thinking he's trying to get information out of me, but I didn't know he was hired. I didn't know he was working on the project. And then he gave me like the code word and a couple other bits of information. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess you really are working on it. And then I gave Jerry grief. I said, you could have told me that Brad was involved. So I didn't like an idiot telling him I don't believe him. Software was Ian and Michael Ocean. Michael Ocean previously did Weird Al, Dungeon Door Defender, Canyon Lagoon, Final Resistance as well, I believe. So he's done a bunch of games and really, really talented. Graphics and animations was Rory Sanuda and Steven Silver. Mechanical design, TJ Weaver and Trey Jones. And TJ is just amazing. Working on stuff is great because I'm throwing out crazy ideas and Jerry's looking at me and I'm like, TJ will figure it out. And he's like, you know what, you probably will. I'm like, we make you do this and then do this and do this. And his work on this is just phenomenal, the stuff he has been able to do. Scott Denisi's on audio, and this is obviously a perfect theme for Scott to come on board and do. He played it for the first time yesterday, and he was very critical of the audio package. So So he's clearly not happy with it yet. He's making some tweaks. I'm sure he's going back and he'll be making some updates right away. Voice work was done by Ellen McLean, who's the original voice of Gatos, and Mark Silk came on to do Reggie, who's the additional character, and Mark's a very well-known voice actor, does some tremendous stuff, and we had a lot of fun working on the project. Since we have some time, I'm going to cruise through some Princess Bride stuff, give you a little bit of behind the scenes of the development process there, and hopefully next year we'll do that for Portal. Do okay in time. All P3 games start off like this. It's a piece of wood with 8 holes in it. Those 8 holes are where the bucks are. So built into the base platform, not only are these 8 balls and 8 scoops that move up and down, but there are 8 bucks. And in each game, we try to leverage that because that's the investment you're making in the base unit, and why, A, the base unit's so expensive, and B, why modules can be cheaper, because we're able to leverage these bucks again and again and again in each game. So we don't use all 8 in any game. We use 1 or 2 or whatever. But it is, again, the starting point is basically this blank piece of paper. And the development process goes through a lot of stuff. Obviously, we're designing a play field. We have to develop the rules. How we're going to present the game, right? We have this big screen. How are we presenting the game? How are we explaining it to the players? How are we doing that? There's an art package, right? We still have art on the play field, well, on the display, on the cabinet, the back glass, all of that requires art. Music and sound, an absolutely critical part of the game. When you're working on a game, at first you have no music and sound, and the first time you start dropping music in, the game comes to life. It's a really shocking thing that first time. All of a sudden it starts to feel like a real pinball machine. Speech, obviously a critical part to the game is getting the voice calls in the game, having those things make sense. Light shows, a critical piece. I was very lucky on Princess Bride. Michael jumped on, he had finished work on Final Resistance. They were starting on Portal, but I stole him for a few weeks to do light shows for Princess Bride because he's the light show guru, and that way I didn't have to become the light show guru. And choreography. That's the biggest challenge in many ways at the end of the game, is getting all of these pieces choreographed together with all of the ball management to bring things to life. And when it's not right, you don't know when it's wrong, but there's something not right, and you can just feel it when you change the game. Different people have different approaches to designing a game. I'm going to show you 2 here. This is cardboard cutout of the playfield for Princess Bride. Now, this isn't the Princess Bride playfield, if you know the playfield. There are elements here from the Princess Bride. That tube in the middle was originally going to be the tree that leads to the Pit of Despair, but we decided that didn't make sense relative to how the rules evolve, so we didn't do that. You'll notice the cliffs moved to the other side. We did do something with swords crossing off the captive wall, but it was done differently. You can see the huts on the right, it moved to the left. But after a bunch of discussion and ideas, this was something I did, and then Jerry did his version, which looked like this. And so this was how he presented the various ideas and the concepts. And we took his ideas and my ideas and other ideas, and eventually that leads to the next step, which is something like this. Okay, what are the shots going to be? How are these pieces going to fit into them? What are those angles? And, you know, this is the first thing. Does this make sense? Do we think this has the right potential? And of course, this leads to something that looks like this. And we start to get a better perspective of how these pieces are going to fit together. And again, this isn't exactly what's in the system right now. This is not exactly, this was at first crack. Although you can see the left side here starts to get a lot closer to what we started to do. And again, okay, what are the shots that we're looking at? So we can start to develop the rules at this point. We had concepts for the rules, but now as we start to get a layout, we can start to develop the rules more specifically as to what's going to tie into what. And you're continuing evolution. You can see, oh, we're going to put where the cliffs might go, and some of this got moved around and changed. But it gives you a sense of the iterative process that we go through. And at this point, we're getting close, and all these lines are actually the identification of the switches. There's always a big battle between the developer and the playfield designer regarding switches. And when I was working on the first game, Joe Balser said to me, "You developers always want more switches." It's like, yeah, because we want the game to work right. So yeah, sometimes it's like, no, I need a switch here to be able to properly detect where the ball is going, where it's coming from. On Houdini, I gave it to Joe on one switch, and after we showed it at Texas, I said, damn it, Joe, put my damn switch in, because the code's not going to be able to handle it correctly without that switch. And so that's what this was. Where at this point, we were pretty close to the layout and making sure all those little details were there. And you know, one of the things you notice on our playfield is that everything gets covered with artwork. So some of this is starting to identify the areas that are going to need artwork later on. And eventually you get to a whitewood that starts to look like this. And eventually it gets even further along and looks like this. And this is actually the whitewood that was in my machine that most of the game development was done on. And there are quite a few tweaks that were made after this to the playfield based on us shooting the whitewood and what was working in various shots and what wasn't. It's a lot of little tweaks that aren't always obvious. So I mentioned the art package. Pretty much on every game I've worked on, it's one of the first things that you send the artist off to do is go start doing cabinet and backlaps. Right? You don't need rules, you don't need playfield for that. So you know what the theme is, you know what you're trying to do, and so off the artist goes. In the case of Princess Bride, we had 2 art packages. This is the standard art package, featuring the lead characters. The math class is actually animated because it is a monitor, so it has a little bit of movement, and you can see it kind of changes between Red Pirate Roberts and the princess versus Leslie and the princess. And then for the limited, the limited edition and the collector edition, different art packages that features all of the characters. And again, we did a animated back glass. So this is a little bit of movement, which just kind of looks cool in the lineup when you see it moving. You can see it there. It's got a little bit of movement, just enough to kind of give it a little bit of dynamic and a little bit of interest to it. So how are we going to bring this movie to life? How are we going to do that? Well, what we initially get from the studio is a screener copy, and you can see on the screener copy, besides the fact that it's watermarked, so they know whose copy, so if it gets released, they know who to go after. But you can see that it has a timer and a frame count. And what we have to do is provide to the studio, we want from this to this, and we want from this to this. And there's a list of dozens and dozens and dozens of these things. And you'll see this actually will do an interesting transition. Sorry, you can't start getting no audio for some reason. We still have that. Basically, we took a screener copy, we slice up from there, and then we actually, once we get our film, we convert it into the pieces we need. To give you a perspective, so this is the film sliced up for the way we wanted it. Now, typically, you provide to the studio this list of what you wanted. The studio that owns Princess Bride, it's the only movie they own, so they haven't done much licensing with the assets in this way. I don't think they were aware of what the requirement was going to be, and ultimately, because of other parties involved, they actually just handed us the high-res version, the highest quality version of the film with all of what are called stems, all the audio tracks, which you can see there. So what was great for us is Stephen and Grace had already sliced everything to figure out what we wanted. He was able to drop the real footage in and very quickly crank out the dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of assets. And the bad news for Stephen was, once I found out he had everything, I said, well, now there's a lot more speech calls that I want. Because we sort of felt we had a limit to a certain amount, and now I'm like, well, I should be able to get anything I want from the movie. And then proceeding to give him another list, and I'm not necessarily finished with that yet. So every time I play, I'll hear things and go, oh, we really need another speech call there. Rules development, I'm going to move through this pretty quick. It's a hero's journey. It's a story, there's a narrative approach, but we didn't want to force the player to play things in order. So we let you go in order if you want, and there is massive bonus points available if you can complete things in order for people who want to do that. But we made it so you didn't have to. Plus you can start a narrative streak at any point. So you can complete a mode And we'll just following along in the book, if you complete the next, you can create. So you don't have to start at the very beginning and do a narrative streak, and there's some techniques as the best way to do things based on requirements for things starting, because the 3 regions don't necessarily match the book exactly. It's not like you can do one region. You do, while the Kugler region where the battles are, you can do in order. In the other case, you have to go back and forth. So it takes a little planning to get your narrative streak. There are 3 regions, each that has a mini wizard mode. There are 2 multi-balls. There's what's called As You Wish multi-ball, which lets you turn any of the battles into multi-balls, makes them much more valuable, makes them much more difficult. But if when you do that and complete it, you get victory laps and there's a lot of points. My strategy is to do it single ball, and then if I fail and don't complete it, then when I come back to it with the As You Wish multi-ball, when I know I have 1 or 2 shots left. All the modes in the game maintain your progress. So if you get 1 shot away from completing a mode, you can come right back and complete it and continue your narrative streak. Your narrative streak doesn't end on a failure. It only ends if you go and play a different mode. Pit of Despair, that's if you earn off a side loop. And if you have Pit of Despair and you drain, it's a chance to get your ball back. You have to make 3 shots. You start with 1 ball. After you make the first, you put a 2nd ball in play, and then a 3rd ball in play when you make the 2nd shot. But if you drain any, you're now all dead. Miracle Max is where you get mystery rewards. You gotta have Max in there, such great characters. 4 Horses is the final wizard mode. You have to complete all the mini awards and qualify the characters. You qualify characters by completing modes. Each mode is tied to 1, 2, or 3 characters. Features are always active. They award boosts that help you in other modes, and the screen here shows you how you can track your boosts. This information is available in the book anytime by hitting the yellow button on the right side. See, I'm running low on time. I got 3 minutes, all right. 3 minutes, they're telling me. Okay, so quickly through concept development. Early on, how are we going to present the game? You can see on the left, so very early, just here's what we're thinking, video screen. The idea for the book came into play pretty early as a way to track things. I mean, it is reading a book is obviously the fundamental part of what the story is about. And you can see there's ideas on how we were going to handle indicators. And then on the right, you can see how those indicators came to life. This is probably version 4 or 5 of the indicators. We would do them. Oh, let's make it this way. Let's change this. Let's give them more depth. We made the animator a little crazy on that, but they really came together nicely in the end. So the way we presented on the left, you see sort of we have the video screen, the pop-ups with your information in the book. We also use the book for mode selection. On the right, you see we supplement other graphics as play continues to communicate to the player what to do. Let's see a few more examples here. Guide My Sword, we have this 3-dimensional sword moving around on the screen. Buttercup's Nightmare, there's lots of pop-ups all over the screen of the crowd yelling at you, and they trying to think of the character's name, with a woman drawing a blank, and a Pit of Despair. Whether you'll notice there in Pit of Despair is the background's different. It's no longer the map. There are multiple different backgrounds we use in the game, mostly with the mini wizard modes. Each have their own background. Pit of Despair does. So this is where the artist did, right? So once the artist finished all the back glass and the cabinet art, then we had to do the backgrounds for the LCD. The wizard mode, which I'm sure everybody who has the game has already made the wizard mode, right? Yeah, okay. The wizard mode features 2 or 3 additional backgrounds as well. Right, so then after that, we need all the decoration for the playfield. So after the artist finishes those things, it's okay, now we need to decorate the playfield. Tons and tons of surfaces. So you can see here is really the concept sketches for it, how it's going to be applied. Not exactly what the game ended up with, but pretty close. And then you can see eventually drawings with the art applied, that the artist has done, applied in a 3D way to see if it's going to really look good. And then eventually we get to this, where it's actually applied and really brings things to life. Okay. Coming up in the end, I just wanted to share with you the incredible effort that Steven Silver, our creative director, puts in communicating his concepts to us. This was his thoughts for the topper As you can see, really understandable, really well thought out, really detailed. But this sketch ultimately becomes this concept, which eventually becomes, this topper. My big issue on the topper early on was that these pages needed to have baffles so they would properly light and not bleed. And this was a case where Jerry's like, I'm not sure we can do that. I said, TJ will figure it out. And then absolutely TJ figured it out. And the book works really well. It helps you track your progress through the game, and it does various light shows. And toppers are an optional feature. As I mentioned, sword on the side of the cabinet for the collector's edition. This game is currently in production and available. Here's the pricing on this game. And I think I'm now out of time. So I stretched that out so I didn't have to answer any questions. But if there are any questions, I'll be right outside the door here to answer any questions, or come see me in the booth. And I'll be happy to answer questions, show you the various play fields that we have going. Hopefully this was informative and was worth your time coming here. And I appreciate everybody taking time out of their day, especially this early in the day when I know you want to be playing games. So I really appreciate you all coming in. Thank you.
Josh Kugler, everyone.
And there you go. That's the end of this podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed learning about the brand new Portal pinball machine by designer Josh Kugler from Multimorphic. It is a very, very cool game, and if you see it in the wild, do play it. Give it some love. And you know what? That's the end of this podcast episode. And until next time, take care, stay safe, and game on.